So we are here beneath the GrowBot, and I would recommend one of the first things that you do is to attach the valves to this support beam, which is on this end of the GrowBot, opposite side of the camera, about midway through, right? We'll send some tie wraps, and you just tie wrap it up there. It's plenty strong enough for what it needs to do. And then put your tanks in. This is after you've assembled the frame. And then run your, put your nutrient tanks in, and then put your valves in. Then once you actually have the water inlets are there, and this valve structure is attached, then go ahead and attach the rest of the wires, because basically the rest of the wires and everything else is kind of supported by these little tubes, these little inlet tubes, and it just makes it easier, that's all. So I would recommend first putting together the frame and attaching the valves with the tie wrap, and then putting in the tanks, and then running up the inlet lines to each one of the tanks. Attaching the inlet lines is you have these little plastic elbows, tubes, right? And you, from inside the tank, you take it, and just push it through a little bit, and then you take both your hands and then push on this end that has this tie wrap. This tie wrap is there to make it just a little bit tighter from when it's doing. It's not under pressure, that's the thing. The water will come out and then it will just shoot out the back of the tube. If a little bit leaks, not a big deal. And that's how you connect these pieces. The valves themselves, these have little ridges, and so you'll just push the tube onto there, and that's plenty enough to hold that in place as well. And then don't move these pieces or these pieces relative to the center four-way valve. That the sealant's already there. If you move them back and forth, you may actually cause it to leak, which would be a bummer. So don't move them at all. So this is the food circulation pump splitter. And so you have 3 food circulation pumps that turn on basically about every 2 or 3 minutes, depending on your amount of sunshine. And they just keep the nutrient properly circulated. And this little unit right here just attaches to the food circulation connection on the controller. So I just want to specify this one, how it works. It's a little bit different than the rest. Everything else actually has just one wire to one component. Now, the water valve assembly has 3 water valves as well as a water hose connector. So your standard water hose line will connect right here, and you will leave the water hose on. You definitely want to have a better quality water hose. Cheap ones will tend to burst after a few weeks to a few months of just being under pressure. Good ones will last, I don't know, they just last a long, long time. So far, at least, I've never had a good one just ever break, even after years of being under pressure. So buy a better one. It will pay for itself by not having to come home to a busted water line. And then up here, these guys have all been sealed and everything. These wires, they all connect to the controller. So valve 1, valve 2 over here, and then valve 3 over here. And then you'll run these inlet lines, water inlets, to each one of your tanks. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so once you've actually created your frame and you've laid in your, you've attached your valves, you've run the valve lines up here, you can lay down your tanks. And once, the first thing that you've done once you do the tanks is you actually want to put in your circulation pumps with their long lines and long wires. I like to put them up closer to the mast end of things. That way the wires have a way to extend. And you want to run your circulation pump wires through these holes first, because actually once your food line's inside there's not enough room to get the plug through. So you can see how we have it wired on each of the 3 tanks. I would recommend sticking with that. So the food circulation pumps, when you put them inside there, you want to have it so the wire's up and has a little bit of tension on it, so it keeps that down. And then you can push the little feet inside there. Sometimes they stick, sometimes they don't. The water pressure will push it back. So once it's actually running, it'll push it back. And basically the inlet is on this end down here. So it'll suck anything that's settled onto the bottom of the tank, it'll suck it up and then redistribute it. So it keeps it really well mixed. you do have to actually keep this a little bit of tension so that hole is pointed horizontally, and it will just keep things mixed really, really well. That's it. Okay, so your tanks actually have two ends. There's this end right here. These are the overflow valves. And then over here, this is the inlets for the food and water sensor and water line. Okay, and not necessarily in that order. The different tanks are ordered a little bit differently just because we're trying to leave lots of room for when you're adding nutrients to your tank. And then also when we're doing the wires, we kind of want to leave this area empty right around here. That way, as you're assembling your GrowBot, you can easily look down there and see the markings on this control case to which wire goes where. I actually have these little plugs, and what these plugs do is there's actually, we'll eventually have these actually used for an upgrade to extend the usability of your GrowBot. But right now, we have these plugs here. And so when you get them, these plugs won't be in there. They'll be inside the plastic bag with everything else. And they just are easily pushed in. The main computer and camera actually sit in this case, or sit on top of your GrowBot on this long mast that we have. And so when you are going to assemble it, I'll most likely have it more like this. This is how you want to put it on. It comes on and off pretty easily like this, right? But be gentle with this. Like I said, it's fragile. And so this is the cover, and it keeps off the rain. It also keeps a lot of the sun and heat off your unit. You notice there's a gap. That gap is very important. It allows the heat to easily just be ventilated, I guess is the right word. I'm not sure what it is. But it works a lot better than actually having a direct thing. We used to have overheating problems initially. Inside here, you can see it's just a mason jar, right? Mason jars have the great thing is that they're strong, as long as you hit them with a hammer, and they're very waterproof. And what we've seen, oddly enough, is that waterproof and outside are difficult things. And so this unit actually has multiple ways of being waterproof. Okay, you also have this plastic ring around here and this little screw, right? And so your camera is going to be more or less focused like this. You'll see, like when it gets down, you want to make sure that it's really centered on the GrowBot itself. And it slides out very easily and slides back in. It's kind of a snug fit, but just enough so that you can get it in and out. And once you put it in place, it generally stays there all on its own. This is the frame without the tanks inside there. When you finish assembling the tank, the frame, it should basically look like that, except yours will have numbers on it where we marked where everything should be going. Down here is the controller that will already be attached, so you don't have to do anything with that. You'll see these little lifters or risers. That's to help align the solar panel properly and hold it all in place, so it's just nice and flush and easy to move back and forth. The solar panels are actually made out of a heat-treated glass that's it's called tempered. Makes it really strong and resistant to being broken. The wood of the frame is a cedar wood, so it's naturally resistant to rot and termites and stuff. But it is on the softer side. So when you're screwing these in, as soon as they actually start to crunch at all, you probably want to stop with screwing it in. They don't have to be super, super tight, just very, very firm. That's good. And these are really a very high quality brass wood screw or glass plated wood screw that should last you a very, very long time. And they have a wide surface area. These wood screws over here, like these guys, right? These are, we had the dual desire to, one is to make it easy for you to screw it in by hand or drill. At the same time to last a long time. So they're also zinc/brass plated, I'm not sure which exactly. But there you go. Okay, so the mast is held on by these 4 screws and these 2 clamps. And you can see it's just placed where it is. You can actually go up and down a little bit. We wouldn't recommend it too much. The paint on the mast is painted on. It was actually a plastic quality paint, but we haven't seen that it's as durable as we would like. So we'd recommend not moving it too much. Otherwise, you'll have to do little touch-ups to make it all pretty again. Hey, Steve. So I've marked all of the legs with numbers on them, and then the boards with numbers on them. And if you just like put 19 to 19 as an example, you put the screws in upside down. So you're gonna be building the GrowBot upside down basically. And these boards all through here are marked where they should go. And then on the other side, it'll just line up. So they're not marked over there. And each one of the legs or on these ends will also have, one of the legs will be marked with the number like 24, has a marking on that piece of wood over there is 24. So it should be pretty easy for you to just assemble it basically upside down. And then I wouldn't tighten up everything real tight initially, just firm enough so it's not wiggly. And then once you actually get the tanks and everything in, then there's a little minor adjustment you might need to do before you tighten everything down to where it's very firm. But you want to wait until you've got a chance to just tweak it a little bit, because they typically, my experience is they don't go into alignment by default. You give them a little tweak at the end.